Okay, the substitute, what this does is this is a compromise. The governor, the General Assembly, the Democrats, Republicans, everyone is involved with this. And it's all four of Dominion Energy's coal ash sites, the Burmo in Fluvanna County, Chesapeake, Chesterfield, Possum Point, and Prince William County will be cleaned, closed, or recycled. The bill prohibits closure in place of these sites. The bill requires at least 1/4 of the material to be recycled if it's economically feasible to do so. The bill also explicitly allows the construction of on-site, fully lined, state-of-the-art landfills. Mr. Chairman, the bill requires minimum truck traffic and preparation of an associated transportation plan. To control customer costs, an annual cap of $225 million is set on the applicable rate adjustment clause. The SCC will review the reasonableness of any cost of recycling or use of a landfill, but will not be able to consider closure in place as an option. The maximum bill impact for typical residential customers under this approach is less than $5 a month, half or more of which would have been required under any approach to addressing this issue. To protect residential customers, these costs are going to be allocated to all customers regardless of their current or future generation supplier. All customers benefited from the energy provided by these power stations in the heyday of coal, and it is only equitable that all customers address these legacy costs. This compromise is supported by the Northern Administration, a bipartisan group of legislative leaders.
So let's see if we have any questions of committee. I see no one is in the queue, but anybody have any questions? Mr. Secretary, would you like to come forward and say a few words? Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Marshall. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. Having not had a chance to review the exact language of the substitute, I think we are generally supportive of it. I think it reflects the language that we all stakeholders agreed upon in the Senate committee yesterday. So I think we should be in a good place here. Delegate Ingram did a good job explaining what the bill does. In general, the goal here is clean closure, hopefully recycling as much of this material as possible, getting the rest up and out of these unlined pits that are a danger to waterways and getting them into permitted, lined, safe landfills. So administration, Governor Northam support the bill, and happy to answer any questions that people have.
Do we have any questions of the Secretary? Yes. Dr. Plum.
Mr. Secretary, on line 22, the encapsulated beneficial use, is that the recycling piece?
Encapsulated beneficial use is the recycling piece, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. And what in the language of the bill directs us to make maximum use of recycling?
So there are a couple of places in the bill that's referenced. In subsection B, on lines 35 and 36, there is a requirement for the owner and operator of the facility to reuse no less than 6.8 million cubic yards in aggregate of the coal ash from at least 2 of these 4 facilities. That's about 25% of the material that's in these facilities. And then later again in the end, in the cost recovery language, that number is referenced again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Yes, Dr.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Carol Foy has HB 2105, which is in a similar area regarding the coal ash ponds. I was wondering, are we taking these bills up together, or is there what's the difference between Delegate Ingram's bill and Delegate Foy's bill? So,
I would like to give Delegate Carol Foy a chance to speak on this, if that suits the committee, Mr. Chairman. But she has been fantastic to work with on this. She's the patron of the original governor's bill. Delegate Ingram has been working with us as well. Our hope is that all of these bills can be rolled together into this one substitute with co-patron, chief co-patron, so that we can move forward together.
Okay. Quick follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a very sort of interesting. I'm curious about the recoverability of the costs. Can you explain the reasoning behind making ratepayers pay for the recovering of the costs on this?
Yes, sir, and this may be a question that you want to ask the facility owner too at some point in this hearing, but what has been done with this material in the past and putting it in the locations that it's in, while not ideal, was at no point illegal or in violation of any law. So, in the way that things work with utilities and being able to recover costs for environmental compliance, it's appropriate and standard for environmental compliance costs to be passed along to ratepayers in an instance where there's no illegality, if that makes sense. This is a little bit of a different beast because usually large projects like this are capital expenditures. A lot of this is going to be operations and maintenance, people and machines in moving around material. So it is kind of a unique cost and a unique situation. But that's why the language is written as it is to allow the owner and operator to be able to recover those costs.
Follow up, Delegate Lowe.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions of the Secretary? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want to come forward? Welcome. You want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My House Bill 2105 and Delegate Ingram's they're coming together in great harmony to mesh a wonderful bipartisan effort here to address one of our biggest environmental concerns in decades. So just want to emphasize some of the other points that was made. We heard the constituents, the environmentalists, the stakeholders, and everyone involved regarding the things that was most important. And this is one of the best ways to get this done in the most environmentally friendly way to make sure there is no cap in place, that it's not an option. We are recycling at least 25% of all coal ash, so that option is there. But I want to say two of the biggest things that I am most excited about is also constituents' concerns regarding truck traffic. I know that in Possum Point, which is in my district, there was estimated to be an average of 150 trucks that would be coming up and down Possum Point Road, which is almost landlocked, and it would be a tremendous hardship on my constituents and the people in that community. I know in other areas there was estimated about 300 trucks. And so what this bill does is allows for rail and other modes of transportation to remove the coal ash, which is going to help alleviate a lot of the problems and high risk that could be posed from just having so much truck traffic dealing with the coal ash issue. The other thing I'm really excited about is that this bill has a provision that local labor has to be used, or there has to be a local labor workforce department that is involved in getting our people to work in this project. So I am really excited about that because there's not very often we can get so many Virginians to work on such a huge, robust project that's going to be going on for so many years. So I am excited for all of the work that everyone has done on this, and thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Let's see if we have any questions of you. So, any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Delegate, I'm interested in a little more detail on the rail and the trucking. Is the right-of-way there for the rail, and who's going to install it, and who's going to operate it, and who's going to pay for it?
Let's get to Secretary. Secretary, I haven't heard rail. I thought that they were going to keep it all on site, and the reason they will keep it all on site is so that it would be, maybe this is a Possum Point, that they wouldn't have to put those 300 trucks, that they were going to move it from the current pond to the line pond.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Poindexter, thank you for the question. The bill envisions the use of multiple options for closing these facilities. One of those options is doing the recycling on site, and then, of course, to use those products that have been the beneficially reused products, you got to get them out of there somehow. So in subsection D, you can see in the bill, there's a requirement for the owner or operator of the facility in circumstances where material is being moved on site to develop in conjunction with the locality a transportation plan that will look at rail and look at barge and see if those are viable, cost-effective options, and then potentially look at ways to minimize truck traffic if there's a necessity to be moving some of this material on the road. So that we think is a pretty good safeguard in those instances. There are also options for the utility owner to either can use a landfill that's off-site in addition to doing recycling, or potentially build a landfill that's on the site if that's appropriate. And that's a solution that will minimize the traffic impacts, because they can just move it from the unlined pit by the river up into a lined, permitted, safe landfill that's away from hazards, if that makes sense.
And just as another point, this bill was sent, referred to House Commerce and Labor last year. So then Delegate Chairman Kilgore put together, along with the Senate side, a work group, and Delegate Wilt and I served on that. Delegate Wilt uses ash in his manufacturing of his product, and that's why he was there. And Ransom was also there too, sorry. And so we met about 3 to 4 times last year and looked at a lot of different ways. We looked at processing. I see one of the people in the back of the room who is a recycler, but we also got a report on making brick, paving brick out of this. So there's several different products that this could be used for to recycle.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate all of your participation and hard work on that subcommittee. I know you had a lot of meetings, a lot of thoughtful conversation, and a lot of input from stakeholders on this. And as you all know, and others on the committee may not know, a report commissioned by Dominion Resources, prepared by AECOM, environmental consultant, came out in November that showed that from these 4 sites, it was feasible to recover and recycle and beneficially reuse as much as 45% of this material. The legislation, as a compromise that we've worked out, requires 25% to be recycled, which we think is an easy and reasonable threshold to hit, and then obviously leaves open the ability, if it's cost effective, to do more than that.
All right, so while you're at the podium, let me see if we have any questions of the members. Seeing none.
Thank you.
So anyone who wants to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward. Raleigh, you have something else? Excuse me, Delegate Ingram.
I didn't want to mislead anyone. On the substitute, the only thing that is not in the compromise is from 111 to 115, 114. That, and it says nothing in this act shall be, this was put in, I just got the message a few minutes ago. Nothing in this act shall be construed to require additional beneficial reuse of CCR at any active coal-fired electric generation facility if such additional beneficial reuse results in a net increase in truck traffic on the public roads of the locality in which the facility is located as compared to such traffic during calendar year 2018. I just wanted to tell you that that's the only change that I know of that has been added that no one knew about.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Catherine Bond with Dominion Energy, and with gratitude to all of those who helped get us to this point of compromise, we're very supportive of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I speak in support of the bill, but also want to offer an amendment. Would you like to do that now, or?
Sure.
Okay.
You just missed it so much, you just got to make it a
Yes. So Dave Albo, with Williams Mullen, I represent a company called Encapit. I've spoken with Delegate Ingram about this, and he finds this to be a favorable amendment if someone would like to offer it. So I have the amendments drawn to another version, but if...
All right, so what line?
So if we're looking at the bill on line 31, dealing with the term encapsulated.
Okay.
So let me take a step back. So what happens is when you recycle coal ash, there's basically 2 things you can do. One's called encapsulated. That's where there's a chemical process. You take the coal ash and it bonds itself into concrete and wallboard and things like that. There's another type of technology, it's called, it has a different word, but let's just call it unencapsulated. Unencapsulated is what my client does. What they do is they take the coal ash, they compress it, and they wrap it in liner, just like you would for a landfill, and they make berms or beams out of it. And those beams are used in the past to do things like build airport runways and structures. My client's technology has been permitted twice by DEQ in Virginia. So if this bill just says encapsulated, then the only type of recycling you could do will be the chemical bond. And we think that the bill should be technology agnostic and just allow any type of recycling. I do know that Dominion finds no problem with the amendment. I know that the Secretary does not like it, and this is where we have agreed to disagree. I think that if his office finds that the use would not be appropriate for that site, they could just say no at the permitting process. In other words, why limit your options in the code? Why not let all options be discussed? And then in the end, DEQ can decide if it was appropriate for the site or not. So I would offer the amendment just to strike the word encapsulated.
And so, Scott, you want to report where that is, please?
Mr. Chairman, on line 31 of the substitute, the word encapsulated would be removed.
That's it? All right, so what's the pleasure of, Mr. Secretary, you want to speak to that? Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Adams? Sorry.
Yes, sir. I actually was speaking to the amendment, I was going to ask the Secretary if he could give the specific opposition that the author of the substitute just addressed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Delegate Adams, for the question. Mr. Albo and I have spoken about this, and the disagreement just stems from the fact that we don't believe that the use of that technology is appropriate for these particular sites, given where they are. The legislation that we've worked on to either move these things into a encapsulated beneficial reuse, get them up and out and off of these sites quickly, and get the rest of the ash into lined landfills, we think is the safest, most environmentally friendly way to deal with this problem and to avert potential environmental disasters down the road. In the instances that this technology has been used by the Department of Environmental Quality in the past, it's been within the confines of an already permitted, lined, safe landfill, and it's been used to help those landfills grow vertically and accept additional refuse versus having to grow out and take up more space. So it's technology that is useful in certain applications. We just don't believe it's one that's useful in this particular application.
Okay. All right, do we have any questions of the Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, if I could speak to the amendment as well.
Yes,
Just with
please.
the deletion of the word encapsulated, it might also include technologies that are not actually in compliance with state and federal regulations. So just to clarify Dominion's position, we would not necessarily be supportive of that amendment.
Okay. So what's your pleasure of committee as far as the proposed amendment?
Mr. Chairman, may I just interrupt briefly?
Sure.
So one of the things we did was say you'd strike the word encapsulated and you'd add the word in compliance with all requirements of applicable federal and state laws and regulations.
Okay.
So sorry about that, but I just saw this version about a second ago. So
All right, so what's the pleasure of committee?
I move the amendment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the amendment. And Scott, would you report the amendment again, please?
Mr. Chairman, on line 31, the amendment would strike the word encapsulated, and then after the phrase beneficial use, it would insert in compliance with all applicable federal laws and regulations.
All right, everyone understand what we're doing? Any questions on that amendment before we vote? All right, seeing none, we have an amendment. You understand the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Noes, raise your hand. Somebody counting? All right, yeses, raise your hand. Yeah. All right, so the amendment passes. All right, anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone want to speak in opposition?
I'm sorry, I'm speaking. This is Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club. We are very much in support of the compromise plan, not so much so of the amendment. Nevertheless, we do appreciate the environmental community's involvement in this process. I will just point out that the amendment really serves as an additional way to store this waste rather than beneficially reuse it. So,
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? All right, Doug Ingram, you want to wrap up?
I think everybody's ready to vote. You understand what it does. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, what's your pleasure? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to report HB 2786 as amended. Please vote on the electronic board. Charles, you go vote. All right, Bulliver's not here, so.
All right, Virginia Venture Capital. There is an amendment, and I'd move the amendment.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay. And, Mr. Chairman, what it does is it allows investments in the venture capital account of up to 10% of the annual disbursements from this fund. So that's basically what the bill does, and the subcommittee recommended reporting and referring to appropriations, 8-0, and I'd so move.
So we have 4 members on this committee that own Tobacco Commission, and so when I first saw this bill, I called Evan Feynman, our executive director, and he likes the bill. He worked with the patron to make sure, work a few tweaks, and so the Tobacco Commission likes the bill.
Sir.
All right. Questions? Patrons here if you have any questions. All right, seeing none, all those, we have a
Mr.
motion
Chairman.
to report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know what about the bill he liked, why he was in favor of it.
Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Wright, so the Tobacco Commission, one of their primary goals is to do economic development. And in so many regions of Virginia don't have access to venture capital. That's the early stage and growth stage of companies. So as we like to say, there's no geographical limit to good ideals. So what I'd like to do is have folks that have good businesses in rural areas have access to venture capital. I look at the chair. I represent a Tobacco Commission county too, Floyd County. They're very well positioned near Blacksburg and the Corporate Research Center in Virginia Tech to get some of this. I look at the chairman's district, which is right outside Raleigh-Durham. And so there's a lot of good ideas there. If we have access to this venture capital, it could help spur economic development, which is one of the primary missions of the Tobacco Commission.
Mr. Chairman.
And it's still in the footprint.
Mr. Chairman, could this money that's been put into venture capital be used outside of the tobacco footprint?
That'd be up to the Tobacco Commission. So,
Yeah. Dr. James?
I just have a comment. I think that I'd like to commend the delegate and those folks. This is a sort of what I consider out of the box things that we have to start to look at so that we can make sure that the economic development future of the state is spread throughout the state. And this is an innovative project, and I think that it's really going to pay off. And I commend the delegate for working on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion to report and a second. All those wishing to vote on House Bill 2190, please do so.
Report and refer.
Report and refer to approach. All right, all those wishing to vote has voted. Clerk will close the roll. 2190 reports 18-0.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, next bill that I'm going to take up is House Bill 2364. I was the patron, and I have let's see, I have amendments, and I'd like to move the amendments. The amendments are
What do you want?
Yeah, Council, the substitute on 2361, Chairman Jones's bill.
Mr. Chairman, we've already handed out the copies for that. I don't have any more other than what's on the table, I'm afraid.
So it's in front of us at our desk?
Should be in your packet, Mr. Chairman.
It's in your packet, in this Subcommittee 3 Chesapeake packet. The second bill over. Do you have that, Doug?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, move the substitute.
All right, all those in favor of the substitute for House Bill 2361, aye. Please say aye. Opposed? All right.
All right, Mr. Chairman, yes, House Bill 2361. Back years ago on issues of stormwater, due to the Stormwater Management Act, there was an agreement from various parties that set timelines for developers to meet certain criteria. And what this bill does is, because those same entities work together and they readjusted that timeline, the grandfathering, if you will, and the subcommittee reported the substitute 8-0, and I so move.
All right, do we have any questions about 2361 substitute? All right, all those wishing to vote on House Bill 2361 substitute, please do so. All right, clerk will close the roll. Reports 18-0. Delegate Will.
Okay, next before us, Mr. Chairman, House Bill 2395, Delegate Lopez's bill, and there were amendments to that.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does, it requires the Department of Environmental Quality, they compile a list of hazardous waste sites, and but the amendment changed that, and I forget the exact terminology we included some language to cover some.
Yeah, Scott, would you report that, please?
Mr. Chairman, on line 14, the amendment strikes the phrase known to, and it inserts the phrase permitted by or in corrective action under. And then on line 15, after the code section citation 10.1-1400, it would insert and not otherwise excluded from regulation as hazardous waste.
All right, so you'll take those in a block?
Shoot.
Do you want to offer those in a block?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of the two amendments, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So, Mr. Chairman, what it does is has the Department of Environmental Quality put on their website the hazardous waste site inventory, except for carving out those sites that the council just mentioned, and the subcommittee recommended reporting with the amendments to appropriations, because it is requiring more work for the department, and that was moved 7-2, and I so move.
All right, so we have a motion to report and refer to appropriations, House Bill 2395. Do we have any questions? All right, seeing none, all those wishing to vote on 2395.
Great bill, guys, great bill.
Please do so.
Can you believe we voted for this shit?
Okay, here we are. All right, clerk will close the roll. House Bill 2395, reports 18-0.
Mr. Chairman, now before us House Bill 2403, Delegate Hodges' bill, and there were amendments. I'd ask council to report the amendments.
Are they in a pack, Scott?
I didn't.
They in a pack.
Yep, I missed it, Mr. Chairman. So I move the amendments.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Delegate Wilt.
Mr. Chairman, the bill requires that the State Water Control Board evaluate Virginia water protection permits, mitigation options for impacts to wetlands on a case-by-case basis with consideration for which option is most practicable and ecologically and environmentally preferable, including in terms of replacement of acreage and functions, the greatest likelihood of success and reduction of the temporal loss of acreage and function. The subcommittee reported the bill with amendments 10-0, and I so move.
All right, we have amendment 2403 as amended. Any questions? Seeing none, all those wishing to vote, please do so. All right, clerk will close the roll. It reports 16-0.
Mr. Chairman, now before us, House Bill 2637, Delegate Webert's bill. It authorizes the State Water Control Board to issue loans and grants from the Virginia Water Facilities Revolving Fund for the construction, renovation, improvement, or equipping of facilities or structures to implement agricultural best management practices to prevent pollution of state waters. The subcommittee voted to report 8-0, and I so move.
All right, do we have any questions about 2637? All right, seeing none, all those wishing to vote on 2637, please do so. All right, clerk will close the roll. 2637 reports 18-0.
Mr. Chairman, now before us, House Bill 2762, Delegate Bulliver's bill, and there is a substitute.
All right, we have a substitute before us. All those in favor of the substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Delegate Wilt.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 2762 directs the Virginia Department of Fire Programs to begin before January 1, 2020, assisting local municipal fire departments to evaluate and, when appropriate, transition to the use of fluorine-free versions of Class B firefighting foam as defined in the bill. Mr. Chairman, that's been determined that there's just as dangerous elements if it continues to be used in one single spot, which often happens in training. They're still allowed to use it when they're fighting the type of fires that requires this foam, and so the subcommittee reported recommending substitute 9-0, and I so move.
So do we have any questions on 2762? Dr. Poindexter.
Mr. Chairman, maybe a question for the patron. Delegate Vogel, was there FIS on this?
Mr. Chairman, there was not a fiscal impact statement. The substitute actually eliminated the requirement for any fiscal impact.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, so House Bill 2762 with substitute is before us. All those wishing to vote, please do so. All right, clerk will close the roll. 2762 reports 18-0.
Mr. Chairman, before us now, House Bill 2783, Delegate Hodges' bill, and there is a substitute.
All right, all those in favor of the substitute say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Substitute's before us. Delegate Wilt.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 2783 authorizes a local government that has a funding program to provide low-interest loans or other incentives to assist in establishing living shorelines to provide such incentives to businesses. Current law authorizes the provision of such incentives only to individual residents of the Commonwealth. The subcommittee reported the substitute 10-0, and I so move.
All right, do we have any questions about House Bill 2783, substitute? All right, seeing none, all those wishing to vote on House Bill 2783, substitute, please do so. right, we will close, and it reports 17-1.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Well, good. Thank you all for your work. Let's just make sure we don't have anything hanging out there. Barbara, everything's taken care of? Scott, we good? All rise.